Chapter 1, Foreign Policy. Last year we studied the Constitution of India. This year we will try to understand India's role in the context of the world. While entering into political, social, economic, cultural transactions with other nations, we wish to achieve certain objectives. These transactions are based on certain principles, and these are included in the foreign policy. In this chapter, we will learn the meaning of foreign policy and the factors that influence it. However, to do that, we need to understand certain important concepts because they would help us in understanding the relations between the nations. What is a sovereign nation? There are many different countries in the world. Every country has a specific geographical area. The people living in that country are its citizens. A sovereign nation has the freedom to take the right decisions for the welfare of the people living in its region. The countries that are free from external control and supreme with regard to internal matters, carrying on their work independently, are called sovereign countries. In this sense, India is a sovereign nation. Interdependence. No country in the world is totally self-sufficient in every respect. Poor, rich, as also developed and developing, all countries are dependent on one another for different reasons. This is known as interdependence. It is in the interest of all to have this interdependence based on friendly relations among nations. It is extremely important to have peace in the world and a feeling of security among all the people. Also, the relations between nations being friendly and based on cooperation and understanding is beneficial for all. When there is international peace and security, every country will be able to create favorable conditions for the development of their peoples. National interest. Preserving the sovereignty of our country, giving priority to economic development and protecting our interests in the foreign relations is known as national interest. While conducting political, economic, trade-related and cultural transactions with other nations, the nations must take care that there is no threat to their independence. Foreign policy. Foreign policy means the policy of nurturing and promoting one's national interest while interacting with other countries. Every country decides on the framework of its foreign policy, and according to its principles, it takes decisions about how and what kind of transactions it would carry out with other nations. The factors that influence foreign policy. There are many factors that influence the foreign policy of any nation. Here, we would learn about some of the factors. Geographical location. The size of a country, its physical features, natural resources and geographical location have an impact on the foreign policy. The characteristic geographical location of India has given her many neighboring nations. Therefore, while drawing up her foreign policy, the existence of the neighboring nations has to be considered. Population. The second important factor that influences the foreign policy is population. Countries that have a low population do not have enough manpower to use their resources for development. On the other hand, the countries that have a high population have to pay attention to fulfilling the basic needs of their citizens. This can lead to an increased dependence on other countries. This in turn can create problems in framing an independent foreign policy. Irrespective of the quantum of population, however, responsible, diligent and honest citizens help in increasing the strength of a nation. Military power. The countries that have a strong and ultra-modern army are able to emerge as superpowers in the world. The foreign policy of the superpowers affects other nations too. The countries that are militarily weak face limitations while framing their independent foreign policy. Economy. There is a close relationship between a nation's economy and independent foreign policy. A strong economy, a decisive position in international trade, economic independence, etc., have an effect on the foreign policy. The nations that have a developed economy are less dependent on other nations. The process of globalization has led to an increase in the influence of the economic factors on foreign policy.